Left of the box. I'm not going to be playing all of David Dole's video here. Maybe just the first kind of few minutes of it. So Trudeau surprises with several good moves. Good moves from Justin Trudeau.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is doing some good things? Maybe? What's happening here? All right, so there's been a couple of policies. And actually, not just policy, but another topic that I'm actually going to fold into a different story that I'll just mention briefly here. Also, slash GST on some goods. Slashing sale afford a meal that day or something. It's wonderful on so many levels. So it's great to see this sort of thing get implemented, as well as this is also new, and I gotta say, welcomed for one reason in particular. I'll get to that in a second. But the Trudeau government to send, the checks is one thing, but also slash GST on some goods, slashing sales tax on various things, including prepared foods. So to be clear, this is for a couple of months, starting December 14th to February 15th. Nations have been still increasing their prices as well.
Okay, we don't need to go into a lot of this video. The things that I wanted to point out too is the $250 checks and the GST holiday, which I will be getting into a little bit more. But it's just, it's nice to see David happy for a change. Like, hey, this is actually a good move from the Liberal government. And if he keeps on doing things like this, then who knows what might happen? We might actually... People might be encouraged to then vote for Justin Trudeau if he keeps on doing things like this. But you see, I appreciate it when David Dole, when Lance, when other people cover Canadian news. Steve Boots, it's important, and I want more people covering Canadian news because it's good to get out there. But it's not enough to simply just cover the news. You have to have different perspectives on the news. You have to have different ways of watching it, of listening to it, of knowing how it affects different people. And there's a perspective that I tend to bring to the table that a lot of these people don't bring. And that is, I'm looking at it from the perspective of somebody who lives with disabilities. And what you just saw there, the $250 checks, there's something about the $250 checks that maybe they're not all what they're cracked up to be, and they're part of the reason why people who live with disabilities despise the Liberal government. So first, we'll get into this, and then I'll explain a little bit more. So somebody, Martin Lucas, nothing quite as peak Liberal as wearing pearls while making a show of helping the poors and implementing a tax holiday that feels right-wing anti-tax politics instead of passing progressive price controls or corporate tax hikes. Yes, again, having this tax holiday, that's a conservative move. Why not make goods more affordable? The cost of living more affordable. Put price controls on things, rent control, corporate tax hikes. Like, there's all these other things, because generally speaking, yeah, sure, it's nice to save money, but I want to see that money put back into services. Taxes aren't a bad thing. They're there for a reason, to help with our services. And when you start cutting these taxes without a way of supplementing them, then that means down the road, the services that we as Canadians rely on will be cut further. But this is also a move Conservatives make. So now you already see Justin Trudeau, when it comes to the immigration, when it comes to taxes and things of that sort, he's going full off right wing with some of these talking points. Again, Justin, they're never going to sleep with you, as in they're never going to vote for you. The people who are going to vote for Pierre Poilievre will never vote for you. And all you're doing right now is you're pissing off another base of people, a group of people that you have already hurt time and time again. We'll get into it.
Inflation and interest rates are coming down, and that is really good news. But we know that a lot of Canadians are not.
So this is the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland.
Yet. And that's why we are offering a GST holiday for the holidays. Because we know that holidays are fun, but they can be expensive. And this year, Canadians are going to get a little bit of extra support.
Sure, have the tax holiday, but the thing is that doesn't solve anything long term. It makes things that much easier for some people for a couple months. It doesn't, if somebody is living with poverty, this won't help them get out of poverty. If someone can't afford rent, this won't help them afford rent. The vast majority of people, it might allow them to go out to dinner once or twice more a month, buy an extra gift, but it doesn't have any meaningful changes to a person's life. It's just nice. But this won't help people who are struggling long term. It just makes things a little, it's just a nice thing to do for a couple months. But the people who are struggling will continue to struggle. This doesn't solve the underlying issues.
So between December 14th and February 15th, we are going to take the GST off of all prepared foods and snacks, all restaurant meals, including takeout, beer, wine, and cider, books, periodicals, children's clothes, children's shoes, even diapers, and because it's the holidays, gifts for your kids, toys, board games, videos. We know that now is a time Canadians need a little extra boost, and the GST holiday for the holidays is going to deliver that. And then in the spring, we are going to give hard-working Canadians a little bit of extra support.
Did you hear what she said?
Hard-working Canadians. Hard-working Canadians.
Hard-working Canadians.
A little bit of extra support. If you worked in 2023 and earned $150,000 or less, we're going to send you a check for $250.
If you worked in 2023, if you had an income in 2023, you're going to be rewarded with a $250 check. If you worked, what group of people tends not to be able to work? There's actually a couple groups of people, but primarily those people living with disabilities. They don't work because they can't work. They won't be getting those checks. Even though people with disabilities need it the most, they won't be getting that benefit. And so while it is nice that some people, a lot of people, most people will get those checks, people with disabilities and seniors are left to rot again. And this is what people like David and Lance often overlook when it comes to things like this. Because one of my pet peeves with Lance was he would talk about CERB, the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit, and how easy it was for people to get, how they could just call in and get it. But the thing is that CERB's was means tested. They just didn't bother to test the means before they gave it out. But the thing is that there was a group of people who didn't qualify for it. People living with disabilities. Now, if you had disabilities and you worked, then technically, yes, you could qualify for it. But The thing is that when you have disabilities and work, you're usually forced to work because you can't survive on disability alone. And then if you were to get CERB, you actually applied for it and got it. Then what happens is it gets deducted dollar for dollar when you have two types of government programs like that are incomes. So then it would deduct dollar for dollar off of your disability payments instead of when you work, it deducts a percentage. So you get to make up to a certain amount with no deductions, and then it'll deduct a certain percentage. But if you got CERB, it deducted dollar for dollar. So a lot of people on disabilities who were forced to work, who lost their jobs during COVID, were in a far worse situation than before. And they were getting no help. People on disabilities were getting no fucking help from the government. And now here they are again with this wonderful $250 for people to help, to buy their fucking votes. And people with disabilities are left to rot again. It's the same thing. They did this whole pomp and circumstance, this big show about making the disability relief benefit, the Canada Disability Benefit. And they advertised it and they made a big show about it. But only a small percentage of people actually qualify for it. And it's only an extra $200 a month. When you are living in dire poverty, $200 extra isn't enough. They have left us in legislated poverty for so long, so far below the poverty level, that in order for us to just get to the poverty level, our rates have to be doubled. And then we will just barely be at the poverty level. But like always, the liberal government in this country, the conservative governments in this country, don't give a fuck about people who can't work in their capitalist system, who can't go out and get the jobs that they deem are important, that help the system keep going. They're nothing more than people who are taking off of the system and not giving anything back. They're not worth it. They're not worth supporting. They're not worth giving a decent quality of life. They'd rather have you die in destitute and poverty than to give you a decent quality of life, because how dare somebody who can't work live a life with dignity? It's disgusting. So I'm happy for the people who will get that $250, that one-time payment of $250. It's good for them. Meanwhile, all the people who live with disabilities, they're not going to see it. They're not going to see it. And the people who get the check, the vast majority of them will never know that people with disabilities were left behind again. This is why you need a range of perspectives when covering the news and politics.
If you worked in 2023 and earned $150,000 or less, we're going to send you a check for $250, because we know times are hard and you have been working hard, and we're going to give you a little bit of extra support.
At least Jagmeet Singh acknowledges it.
Why is this Liberal government... You know what's cruel? The $250 check that's going out in spring, this Liberal government is excluding seniors, people living with disabilities, and people who just started working. What a slap in the face. Why is this Liberal government excluding the most vulnerable in our country? You know what's cruel?
It is cruel. And it's cruel that it happens over and over and over again. It's cruel that the federal government has made medical assistance and dying more accessible to people living with disabilities than affordable housing.